Thank you, wonderful musicians, for that beautiful music. So as our musicians are making their way back to their seats, let's all take a few deep breaths together. And thank yourself for doing all that's required to get to a place this Sunday morning, to be with community, like-hearted, like-minded, coming together in one accord to open our hearts and our minds to the one presence known by so many different names. As we take a deep breath, we let ourselves open to the stillness, the quietude, silence. We remember that this ancient silence is the ancient silence out of which we've come. It's the ancient peace from which we're made. It's this ancient holiness, wholeness, after which we are patterned. We are made in the image and the likeness of the Most High Consciousness, the one true presence, known by many, many names through many cultures, religions, spiritual paths. We open to this ground of all being, this creative intelligence, this grid, this matrix, this field of energy from which we've come, of which we are a part. We open our hearts and minds to feel the collective consciousness, the bigger, wider community beyond this room, beyond this little part of the globe. We open our consciousness to touch into the consciousness and the hearts of our global family, gathering in temples and synagogues and mosques, cathedrals, tiny churches, drumming circles, dancing circles, community in many, many forms gathering. We let ourselves feel the full stream of life energy moving through us. And in every moment, we have the decision of how we use our thoughts, how we use our feelings, how we use our words, our actions, our decisions, how we are participating in the unfolding of wholeness or brokenness, how we participate in the unfolding of kindness or unkindness, peace or non-peace. And so we seek the balanced place. We stand in the center of our being, and we observe as some parts of the world in chaos and collapse, and other parts of the world unfolding, creating. We give ourselves over to the great mystery. As we take a few moments of silence, we allow our hearts, our minds to ponder the awesome, mighty truth that we are the light of the world. circumstances, events. If it feels good for you to speak a name out loud or a word out loud, bringing these prayers into this present moment, this healing energy that we're creating together. And we continue to hold in consciousness all world leaders, knowing our capacity to create a world that works for all. We lean in to the image and the likeness of who we are. The image and the likeness of light in physical form. We give thanks for remembering who we are, and we say, so it is, and so let it be. Namaste. Please turn to someone and say, thank you for being the light of the world. Good morning. Are we too warm or cold? We're warm? We're cold? Okay. Do we need to kick up the heat? No. Okay, if you see somebody doing this, wrap them up in your jacket or put your arm around them. Okay, here we are, y'all. This is the day that we have been waiting for. This is the day that we say yes to paying attention in a bigger, more expansive way, paying attention to the story that we're creating in our hearts and minds nonstop. It never stops. There's no time for commercials. There's no time for timeouts. We're non-stop creating the story in our hearts and our minds. Have you noticed that? Now let's all take a deep breath. How many of us are creating the highest, most clear, powerful story in our hearts and minds that we're capable of? Paula is. All right. So let's take a deep breath. We're all going to Paula's house tonight. So this is why we come together in community, because sometimes we create new powerful stories in the clearest and best way, and sometimes we don't. So one of the most powerful reasons for community is that we come together to lift each other up, to encourage one another, to remember. Because there's nothing we can teach one another, but we can help each other remember what we already know. We've been designed to have the deepest wisdom, the highest consciousness. That's the way we're designed. Nobody has to give you a book to know how to do it. You're designed with this already. So we show up to help each other remember. Is that okay? Yes. Yeah. Turn to somebody and say, have you remembered today who you are? Have you remembered who you are? Yes. You know, I want to pause a second and just reflect on, so we were looking at some photos this morning that Joe and Jenny Riggs put in. Joe and Jenny Riggs, back here on the back row from Slippery Rock, Pennsylvania. Slippery Rock, Pennsylvania. They've been coming to this church since Noah built the ark. They were coming to Unity when they looked at this building to buy, y'all. So they brought some photos in this morning, and in those photos, besides Jenny and Joe, Diana Grady was here. I don't know how many years, but it looks like about 20 years ago. And Ethlyn was in those pictures. And Olivia was in those pictures. Isn't that fun? You guys have been holding the vision with this idea called unity for a long time, haven't you? Olivia's.
I must have missed that photo shoot.
You must have missed the photo because you were here too 20 years ago. Isn't that something? So here we are. The news story begins where? In our heart. And how many times do we get to create a new story?
Every day. Every day.
The spiral, the spiral, the spiral. So that's the good news, because if you don't like the way your story is feeling, you get to redesign it or tweak it a bit. Some of us may not need to do a whole new story, maybe just tweak it. Some of us need to turn in the library book and get a new one. Because some of the stories that we're telling ourselves are depleting our life energy. How many of us have felt recently that our life energy was going down, down, down? We needed to do something to renew it, restore and transform it. So we get a new thought, we get a new song, we sit down and meditate and pray, we call someone to help us remember. We do what we know to do to lift ourselves back up. Otherwise, we won't do each other much good if we're all sinking. Is it not the Titanic? We know how not only to keep the ship upright, we know how to lift one another's consciousness so much that fear is transformed into high and holy wisdom. That's how powerful we are. Okay, let's take a deep breath. Here we go. So, Jack Kornfield, everybody know who he is? Buddhist teacher. He wrote a book called Set the Compass of Your Heart. No matter what situation we find ourselves in, we can always set our compass to our highest intentions in the present moment. No matter what the circumstance. Even if my country feels very uncertain about how to unfold the highest and best, even if political leaders are making decisions that feel to me are chaotic or hurtful or painful, even if there's starvation in the world and a lack of good clean water, I can set my compass to my highest intention for each moment. Even though all about me is shaking, I can stand in a balanced place and reach for the highest intention. Is this true or not?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Because otherwise I may be just fooling myself. So perhaps it is nothing more than being in a heated conversation with another person and stopping to take a breath and ask yourself, what is my highest intention for this moment? Is it to slap you side the head?
Some days.
Or is it to open my heart and my mind to you even though I'm confused about what you're saying or thinking? Can I shift my feelings? I'm not responsible for yours, but can I shift my feeling, my energy about a topic or an issue? Can I do that?
Yes.
Am I willing to do it? See, I'm a creature of free will. I have the will to reach for the highest intention or not. We've talked about this before. We know when our choice points are, don't we?
Yes.
We know when, for example, when David and I are having a conversation. That could include some heated moments. I know when my choice point is. I know if I say the next thing that I'm thinking right now, it's going to create something that I am familiar with, and I know where it will go. And I also know if I choose to pause and take a deep breath and choose another way of being, that I'm opening up the spaciousness of that opportunity for understanding and transformation and forgiveness. And every once in a while, I choose number one. Because I cannot stop myself. It is a pattern that is strong enough that in that moment of heated conversation, I go ahead and plunge into a place where others fear to go. Thankfully, we don't do that like we used to. We haven't done that in so long, it's just a distant memory. But we all do it, don't we? We all have a moment a moment of free will. Somebody comes into our sphere and enlightens us on how bad it all is. And in that moment, we can feel ourselves wanting to agree. Oh, hell yeah. Oh, yeah, it's really bad. Or there's another choice. You know what? I know it feels like it's really bad, but here's the thing. I have an idea that even this is leading us to our transformative moments of awakening. Even this chaotic issue is opening our hearts and minds to the next place of evolution for our human family. So we have a choice. Now, it may not be the way your neighbors usually talk with you, but we get to decide. We get to decide to be a voice that says something different. We get to be the voice that brings healing into the mix. We get to be the voice that brings clarity and wisdom and understanding into the mix. And if we choose to make that other choice, it's okay, we'll get another opportunity. So let's take a deep breath. Somebody came up to me a few Sundays ago and said, "Are you saying it's up to all of us?"
Where have they been?
They've been at my old Pentecostal church. But let me tell you, it's a powerful moment when we ask that question. It's a powerful moment when we ask ourselves, wait a minute, you mean it's up to all of us? Wait a minute, you mean it's really true that we're the ones we've been waiting for? Is that what you're saying, that it's up to all of us? Yes. Yes. Jesus himself said it. And, you know, he knew we'd get it pretty quickly. So 2,000 plus years later, we're realizing, oh, that's what Jesus meant when he said we're going to do all the things he did and greater. Oh, I get it. I'm supposed to show up and be awake and be the Christ no matter what it's looking like. Oh, yeah, I get it. That is a powerful moment. So, Greg Braden in Resilient Heart said, the core value of a transformed world will become the quality of life for our global family. So let's take a big, deep breath on that. Core values are maybe different for all of us and similar in so many ways. But one of the core values, let's just talk about this country. Don't listen, Betty, you're from Canada. We're doing everything right. Okay, wait. Core values. Let's just take this country. One of our core values has been materialism, right? I mean, come on. We've got 572 Walmarts just in a grand string. How many Walmarts do we need? In Pawleys Island, we've got 5 grocery stores in 2 miles of each other. Come on, y'all. 1 mile, yeah. That's been a core value, and maybe we're rethinking that now. Looking at the landfills and the problems with plastic. And so we have turning points where we open our hearts and minds to see things differently. So a core value of transformed consciousness is that we want a world where people have their basic needs met. Think about being in a world right now where you don't have enough clean drinking water or enough food in your bowl for the day, or safe shelter. Just, we're living in a country of plenty and abundance. And yet, spiritually, we sometimes hang out way too much in the dark, dark fear place. And yet, we are a country of plenty. core value, quality of life for the global family. Who does that include? Everybody, everyone, everything. Giraffes need a good environment to live in. Right? A world that works for all. Now, I'm not going to try this morning to figure out all the details of how to get there with the right legislation and the right call to people's hearts to do the right thing. I don't know all the details and how we're going to get there. But if we're not holding in our consciousness the vision of a world that works for all, how the heck are we ever going to get there? The one present says, what is it that you're wanting to create? And what we say back to one presence is, oh my God, the world's just in so much trouble.
And that's what we're gonna get.
And one presence said, can you give me something to work with? Give me a vision. Give me a divine idea that I can wrap all of my creative energy in it and through it and around it. Let's do this thing. Let's unfold the world in a transformed way. What am I giving to one presence to work with? When I say things like, it's never going to get better, it's only going to get worse.
You're creating the same thing.
What?
You're creating the same thing because that's the energy that you're meeting with. You got to go higher.
I have to go higher. I have to have a giraffe's neck to look higher. I don't know about you guys, but this is like, dang, I thought it would get easier at this point. I thought after, how many years is it? Almost 69 years on the planet. I thought that I would have had it so well by now that it would be instant in every moment God consciousness plugged in. And yet, I still have to work from time to time to stay in the balanced Christ consciousness. I know I'm the only one, but today's my day for confession. Somebody often will say to me, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know what God wants me to do. I know what God wants us to do. God, one presence, one power, creative intelligence of the universe, wants us to know who we are. Please, come on. Would you please remember who you are and that you have the power of the universe in your heart and your mind. You can create it the way you want to. And we keep going, is that true?
Yes.
What does a better world look like? What is the new story? Or what is the transformative story? You know, we cocoon and we butterfly over and over and over. We have resurrection stories happening in our lives over and over and over. It's not a one-time deal. So here we are in Easter time. It's one of my favorite times of the year. I love Easter time. I love Palm Sunday. I love Easter Sunday. I love what leads up to it. I love the idea of letting go from my consciousness what needs to be crucified and let go of. What needs to be released. And I love the idea that I can go into my place apart, my place away from the noise. I can go in to a place of quiet and stillness. You can call it a tomb. You can call it a womb. It is the place where creative energy moves. And we rebirth ourselves. We resurrect ourselves. We're resilient. That's another way to look at resurrection. I go into the tomb. Looks like life is over. Life is gone. Looks like things have ended. And then we emerge. We re-emerge again and again and again. Don't ever think you're done. Oh, yeah, I've done it. I've read the books. I've done the workshops. I'm going to come do one more with Dr. Marcia this afternoon, but I've done them all. I've read the books. I've had the epiphanies. Haven't we all? Haven't we? You know, man, I've been at this stuff for years. I've got it. I've got it. And then life happens. it's something about the fan. There's chaos everywhere. And then we choose. Again, go into the tomb, the dark womb, the place where creative magnificence works with you and around you, and we re-emerge. We re-emerge. And that's important because if we're not careful, we don't come out of the tomb. If we're not careful, that's where the story ends. If we're not careful, full of care for ourselves and our global family, we stay in the tomb. And we forget to look at the order of service, that there's a resurrection meant to follow every dark time. But we decide to stay in the tomb. Can you imagine if Mary Magdalene had shown up that morning at the tomb and the stone is rolled away and Mary peeks in and she said, "Are you in there?" And Jesus says, "I ain't coming out." How many of you this morning wanted to turn off the alarm and go back to sleep? It's cold, it's rainy, it's perfect for sleeping. What are you doing here? What if the story had gone like that? Well, Jesus decided to sleep in the tomb for a couple of thousand more years till we were ready. Metaphor or literal? I personally believe that there really was a resurrection. But it doesn't matter to me if you believe it's a metaphor. Because I've seen things. You know that commercial on TV? I think it's Farmers Insurance, or it's we
see that, we've covered it.
what we know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two. I love that. My own life experience has taught me that we're surrounded by the miraculous, and there are things for us to see and hear and understand that seem miraculous. In fact, they are part of the way we're created. It's what we're supposed to see and feel and understand. And we call it a miracle. We call it the miraculous. I personally feel that we're all a part of a resurrection energy that Jesus knew how to work with. You know, he didn't just show up and say, "I think I'll be Jesus. And I think I'll tell them something they haven't heard before, and then I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to razzle and dazzle them and show them how to resurrect." You think he just showed up knowing how to do that, or he got an e-book and read about it? That his lifetime, and in my perspective, many lifetimes before, prepared him to show up in that moment and bring something into the world that hadn't quite been seen before. Let's take a deep breath. I'm going to invite you to know something very powerful, and myself, something very powerful. We are prepared for this moment. We're prepared to emerge out of these times that we're living in. We're prepared to emerge with resurrected consciousness. Now somebody's saying, "Man, she's putting a really good spin on what's going on in the world." Let me tell you, it is the most divine spin. And that's what we're talking about. Spin the news story in a way that healing can happen. If we're not taking care, we spin the story in a way that harm happens. You're in charge. Jane, turn to Jerry and say, "You're in charge." Maria, turn to Marty and say, "You're in charge." Turn to somebody and say, "You're in charge. You're in charge. You're in charge of the spin." You're in charge of the spin. You're in charge. We've put you in charge of the spin. So I predict that many of you will have today an opportunity. Someone will want to tell you how bad it is. Someone will want to tell you, Dan, Kate, Phil. Somebody will want to tell you how really, really bad things are. And then there's your choice point. I'm going to spin this to work together for good. I'm going to spin this to work together for transformation of consciousness. I'm going to spin this to work together where there was fear, there's faith and encouragement. You're in charge. So let's take a deep breath. The new story, the creation story, the resurrection story. It's your story, it's my story. We take our heavy hearts, our grieving, we take our confusion, our uncertainty, and we enter into the Holy of Holies, the place where resurrection happens. It can feel like a dark place. It can feel like sometimes a place where nothing's happening. And yet, the seed needs the dark ground to germinate and grow. And so we say yes in this Easter season, entering into the place of listening, being attended to by the great mystery, opening our hearts and minds to the anointing of the Spirit of the Most High Consciousness moving through every cell, every atom. We enter in with open hearts and open minds into the mystery, knowing that there is an emergence happening. An emergence for each one of us, individually, more importantly, collectively, globally. We give ourselves over to seeing the evidence of transformation in the world. We give ourselves over to listening for the stories of kindness and peace and understanding. We bless our global family this morning and all the ways we're reaching for a world that works for all. What a privilege to be a part of this world right now. We're in charge. In alignment with the one presence, one power. We're in charge of our thoughts, our words, our actions. And we say, so it is, and so we let it be. Namaste. So one more time, y'all turn to somebody and say, you're in charge.